Hot Breathiverse, welcome back to Hot Breath, the show where you learn comedy from the pros. I am your host, comedian Joel Byers, and the pro we are learning from today. He's been in the game over 20 years, and despite coming from a family of lawyers, being struck by lightning, shot, had his head busted open by a baseball bat, all those fun things, his comedy journey has really taken him from being a personal assistant to a social worker. I mean, what this guy has created is a brick by brick, self-made career. And that is exactly what we aspire to create here at Hot Breath, our DIY comedians, self-made comedians. So this guy has the blueprint, and we are so excited and honored to bring to the Hot Breathiverse the one and only Mr. Yannis Pappas, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up for Yannis.
Hello, everybody. Hello. I look like a grizzled vet right now. Hair all messed up, gray in my beard. I look like Bull Durham. I don't know if you know the movie. Do you know the movie?
I know
you're
the
12,
movie.
right?
Yeah, for sure. I know the movie. You're not dating yourself that much.
Yeah. So I've been in the game for a long time. It's been a jagged path. I'm not the comic like most comics who started and then never stopped. Like once they started, they just, I started, stop. So it's been a jagged path.
Oh, how many? I know you stopped once for 2 years. How many times do you actually quit?
I would say I fully quit I started in around 2000. I fully quit from about 2000 to 2005, like 2.5 years. And then I kind of did it off and on until I went full in 2008. That's when I started really devoting myself to it. Quit my job, lived off my girlfriend, which, by the way, if a lot of young comics are watching this, they say, what's one of the big pieces of advice you can give me? One of is get a girlfriend with a job and have no shame in having her pay for you. Hey, okay, you got to you can't make omelets without breaking a few eggs. She is the soldiers that you have to sacrifice for the Saving Private Ryan, which is your career.
How bad did it get? Like having to live off of someone you're dating? Like, did it get kind of dicey? Of like, Yannis, what are you doing here?
Yeah, no, she could sense it. We lived in a rent control apartment that my friend grew up when. I'm from Park Slope, Brooklyn. So when Park Slope got gentrified. When it got gentrified, yeah, my buddy lived in what used to be a bad area, Park Slope. He moved out. So me and my other buddy renovated his house by ourselves. So what didn't look too renovated. And we lived in that rent control apartment for 8 years. We used to hide from the landlord when he would knock because he suspected that my friend wasn't living there, whose family was in his name. And so she moved in with us. My ex-girlfriend, it was me, my ex-girlfriend, a roommate. And I think all of our rent was $300 in Park Slope, Brooklyn, when that apartment on the free market would have went for about $2,500.
Oh my gosh.
So find a way, guys, find a way. That's the great thing about comedy is you got to really pave your own road. You can't look at anyone else's road too much and figure it out that way. You have to kind of pave your own. It's like driving at night, with the headlights on, you can only see so far ahead of you.
Yeah, and something I've heard you say is that the internet and how it really is the greatest thing to happen to independent artists. And you've embraced it since ditch film. You've been creating your own content for a long time now. One of the questions one of our comics here asked from Mitt Wolf is there's when we asked Mark Norman about being a comedian, he's like, there's so many other things, and he's like social media and branding and all of this. How should comedians be leveraging the internet to start really creating their own path?
Yeah, you have to think of yourselves. You have to think of yourself now as an entrepreneur. You're your own marketer, your own producer, your own writer, your own performer, your own grip, editor, etc. You are the network that you used to try to get behind you. There's nothing really to get anymore. There's only something to build. The internet, even the streaming services, yeah, bang. Even the streaming services are internet. People are like, oh, but Netflix is still big. It's like Netflix is the internet. So the old Hollywood model is gone. You even see Schultz got a show on Netflix after doing his own thing. So, your YouTube channel, your Patreon, your podcasts, your skits, whatever it is, your memes, whatever you're doing. Stand up is just one of the things you do now. Just be funny on whatever platform it is, even if it's on Clubhouse before it completely collapses. Just be funny. Like, it's not about like, oh man, you know, like that East Coast thing. Like, I'm going to sit in the back and watch it tell, and I want to be just like that. It's like, that's only one aspect of what we do now. And it's not the most important one. That's just the truth.
You've really embraced it, and you're churning out a lot. Like, do you have a system, a schedule, a team behind this? Like, you got a lot of output you're doing here.
Yeah. I have 2 guys that work for me. One is my producer, Jesse, who was my partner in Ditch Films when we did that. Ditch Films was, we were really early to the game, before Schultz, before Tim, before Rogan even's podcast.
Yeah, take that, Rogan.
Take that. In like the late 2000s, me and Jesse formed a production company called Ditch. We were doing like user-generated branded content for companies like Foot Locker. We were doing videos and sketches, and I had a few characters that really got popular, and I started selling tickets. But it was really before the internet was kind of fully monetized. You could only really cash in by doing the shows live, and I did. But now, obviously, the internet is completely fully monetized, and a great person to look to is Tim Dillon or Schultz, and how, you know, you can see what Tim is making now. I'll go so far as to say I don't even think it's possible to make that money in TV unless you're a massive name on a massive hit, and good luck with going for that. I mean, that's like 3 or 4 people who are going to get lucky and get that. So there you go. Look at the money Tim's making, and if you don't know what that is, it's a lot of money, and it's all due to his podcast. It's all because of his podcast. So those are the guys to look up to now: Schultz, Rogan, Tim, Tiger Belly, all, Bobby Lee, all the guys that are doing that, and even some of the YouTube guys and meme guys, and even Tank Sinatra. I mean, those guys are making a living. So if your goal is to make it in entertainment, that's what you have to really consider nowadays. And you guys know that. I mean, this is all young kids know that better than old kids.
But it's actually doing it. I mean, we're like, oh, okay, yeah, I need to be online a lot. I need to be posting sketches. I need voices or characters. But then it's like, I mean, even me, I'm 11 years in, and last year I released my own comedy special. I was booked on a tour. Like, I was going to be a touring headliner, and then COVID hits, and I was like, I guess I gotta do social media. And then now like half the time I'm just looking at my phone like, I don't even know what I'm doing. Like, like, what am I gonna do right now, Well,
yeah, a new job has emerged in the field of comedy, and that's the tech guy, the guy. You got to get yourself a guy who can edit, or you become that guy and all that stuff. But you need a camera guy. You need there's a lot of people out there who are terrible at comedy. Some of you aren't sociopaths and have a little self-awareness. I recommend to you guys, you have a little epiphany and you say, hey, I'm not funny at all. I love comedy. I'm lucky enough to live in this era where, you know what, let me learn how to do all that other shit, and let me join someone who is funny, and we'll become a team and make content.
Who was the other guy on your team? You said you had the producer, and who's the other person?
Oh yeah, and then I got my boy Drew, and he has aspirations to become a comedian. Good luck with that. I hope he does that, but he also knows how to do all the tech stuff. So he's sort of our intern now that works with us. So there's 2 of them. Jesse's my producer, and Drew is the intern, and it's those 2 guys. They bang everything out. They make the clips. They record the podcast. They produce it. They direct it. I sit down and I just fucking yell like a madman. That's my job, is to try to tell jokes to feed my daughter's face.
So your role is just entertainer. What the team's role? One guy is like the video and editor. Like, as a producer, what I'm really asking is like, okay, if I want to start taking this more seriously and actually be proactive and getting momentum in this like online space, like what do I need? Like, who do I need doing what type deal? Because I can be funny and I can, I can work hard, but it's like, what do I need in place, I guess?
Yeah, you need a studio for your podcast. You need a green screen. Start doing sketches. You need a shooter, somebody who can shoot, somebody who can edit. You're going to have to start considering, hiring people on an ad hoc basis to create your flyers, art designers, things like that used to really be difficult. There's a lot of people that know how to do it now. They're all online. Once they start becoming a fan of your podcast, they reach out to you, or you can see them doing the work on someone else's podcast. You reach out to them. Like this kid who makes all the signs for the podcast. I think his name is Ted Munns. He's a kid who lives in Vancouver. And I know when we made the History Hyena sign, I found him because he had done a few other signs. And now he's doing like everyone's signs. And he does them with tile and he lights the back and they're amazing. And so, people are really making their sets look high tech now. They're making them look really good, like real sets, because there's real money in it. I mean, advertisers now are seeing the numbers on podcasts and that those numbers are getting better numbers than television. And so the ad dollars are starting to go to those independent producers. Make no mistake about it. So you need to be, like I said, your own set designer. You got to be everything in one.
Gotcha.
It used to be the entertainment was a cruise ship and you wanted a ticket on the cruise ship. Now you got to buy yourself a speedboat. You got to be able to change and adapt and churn things out. Things move very quick now. You can't sit there and work on a script and write a show. That's what these fucking dumb people who are 40 years old and they're sniffing the ass of some producer in Hollywood. They sit there, they have 100 meetings, they rewrite the show with 100 opinions. By the time it comes out, Andrew Schultz has already done that thing 100 times. Everyone has done it already. Every joke you hear on SNL has been tweeted. That's why this doesn't work anymore. That's why it's dead. And they just won't give up. And I'll tell you what, how I know entertainment, the traditional entertainment is dead. I used to work in the nightclub business. When a club goes out of business, like right when it's going out of business, what they do is to get their last cash grab before the community board shuts them down or they just run out. They'll do ethnic themed nights. They'll do, they'll do a Latin night. They'll do a hip hop night. Uh-huh. When a club in New York City has lost its cool factor, that's what they do right before they shut down. It's a last cash grab, desperate move to guilt you. Wokeness is like, okay, we're woke. So if you don't watch us, you're evil. So that's another marketing ploy to get you to watch, because that's all they got, because all the organic eyeballs are truly online. And all the demographics that advertisers care about and companies care about, especially, that's the most important thing. Those demographics are certainly online. So as a comedian, you have to adapt to that now and get your team together. You got to have a team and you're the CEO of that team. And you got to learn how to be a CEO real quick, which doesn't come easy to a comic. But you have to do it. And you're the captain of your own speedboat, and fucking make sure there's gas in that thing and go.
Yeah, because I've been doing this podcast for over 5 years. We've done over 300 interviews with comedians, but it seems like it feels like it's like comedy fans listen, but it seems like most comics now are like they're being funny on a podcast. Like, I'm not necessarily funny on here. I'm interviewing comedians and learning from them, but I don't know if the numbers are reflecting the quality being put out there. Like, do you recommend? I'm coming to you for help, Yannis. I've been doing this 11 years. I know it's patience. I know you've been in it.
We could have just done this on a Zoom call.
Yeah, but we get to stream it and now it's content.
Right.
But I was just trying to think of, like, if I need to start my own and where I'm just funny and showing my own personality, or if it's just continue on this and just keep seeing it all the way through and being patient,
That's something you can answer. Yeah. I mean, Mark Maron's not funny on his. His was an interview show too. Joe Rogan's not funny on his for the most part. And that works. You got to figure it out. That's the thing. I mean, I did a bunch of podcasts that failed. I've done more podcasts that have failed than the ones that are working. So one with Chris, History Hyenas was the first one to work. But, you only need one to work. So if you want to try something else, maybe go for it. I mean, I did one with Justin Silver about dogs that sucked. I did one with James Mattern that sucked. I did a solo one before when I was living in Miami doing that fusion show that sucked. Am I missing any? I think that's it. So I've done a couple of failed ones. Yeah.
Just keep going at the end of the day. Yeah. Yeah. History of Hyenas is one we're all like, what? Where'd they go? Like, we miss you.
Yeah. It's that's one of those things that it had a great run and it's a classic, and Now people can watch my podcast, Long Days, and Chris has, Chrissy Chaos. And so, yeah, I mean, it just 3 years we had, shows come to an end. So that one came to an end.
How do you bounce back? And I'm not saying the show didn't bomb, but like in the psychological roller coaster of stand-up comedy, like how have you been able to navigate that? Because no one's immune to like the highs and lows. How do you deal with those lows and bouncing back?
Man, they're hard. It's hard. It's only something comics really understand, especially if you're sensitive. There's only two types of comics I've met, which is like sociopaths, like psychopath, like they're born cognitive. They don't have any feelings. And they do deal with it. They deal with that well. They deal with it better, like they do in every field. Usually they rise to the top of every business because they just are unencumbered by feelings. It's a real advantage. And then the other type of comic is overly sensitive, and wants the love and approval and stuff like those. Are the only two types I've met, and I think that's the only two types that there are. I'm the latter. And if I was the former, I'd be lying and say I was the latter anyway.
Right. Yeah.
That's the modus operandi. But it's very difficult, and only other comics get. I think the best thing to always remember is you're not as good as your best set. You're not as bad as your worst. So don't get too excited when you kill. Have some humility about it, because you've had the bad ones. And when you bomb, remember that you've had the good ones. So you're not as bad as that either. It's just, that's how you try to stay even kill. You want to be more like Jerry Rice and less like Odell Beckham Jr. Mm-hmm. Odell Beckham Jr. treats every catch like he won the Super Bowl. You don't want to do that. Jerry Rice treats every catch like it's just another catch. And until the scoreboard says win, it doesn't matter. And so that's what you want to emulate.
Yeah. And just keep chopping wood. Stay consistent.
Keep chopping wood. Nobody better to look at for that than Mark Norman. Just a worker. He goes in. He's a great example of someone who just consistently hits the speed bag.
Yep, for sure. And it's funny. I think a lot of times young comics are like, oh, well, I'll just get famous on the internet before I even understand how to be funny. It's like some people are trying to put the funny before the fame nowadays.
Well, hey, I wouldn't recommend that either. Whatever works for you. If you could put the fame before the funny, do that too.
Yeah. And something
you'll figure out the funny.
You did with your characters. I mean, you developed so many great characters, and that's something Trent Babb asked about, a comic over in California. He's asking about your voices and act outs are so good. How do you come up with them?
God, I don't know. They kind of happen organically. Like, I don't know. They're usually an amalgamation of people. It's a vibe. It's a vibe. And then I kind of work out the story. Like for Maurisa, she was actually a character I did live on stage for a while. And that's how I built her backstory. And that's probably why she hit the hardest, maybe because she was the most worked out. So there is something to that, getting the character fully developed, what her goal is, what her backstory is, what her psychology is, practicing it. The other ones that I've created lately, they've come up kind of organically, like Derek from Tallahassee, and he's sort of I spent a year in Florida living in Miami, and you go that Miami, that's a Miami guy. I mean, I'm sorry, that's a Florida guy outside of Miami or in some parts of Miami that are sort of from the old world Miami. And they're just different, man. And so it's an amalgamation of things. It's kind of thought out. It's kind of a vibe I've experienced, obviously. Is, like they say, if you want to do what you know, like don't try to do what you don't know. Do what's closest to you. So the Greek guy, obviously, I'm Greek. Maurice is, Puerto Rican. I grew up around Puerto Ricans, dating Puerto Ricans. I'm from New York. It's part of the culture in New York. Derek, I lived in Miami. So do what's closest to you. You do what you know. Imitate if it's going to be your dad, your mom, your girlfriend, their family. Don't try to do something foreign. Do something that's close to you. Unless you're an impressionist, then those guys just watch impressions and do it. So,
yeah, I've heard you say you'll work your characters on stage and then film them. What are you doing when you're working them on stage?
Working them on stage, just riff with it. Just riff with it.
In that character.
Riff in that character. Get into the psychology of that character. That is something I do. It's like when I've performed Maurisa many times for years live for her fans. And it's like, I'm gone. Like every thought I'm having, obviously the Wizard of Oz is behind the curtain a little bit, but I am fully committed. Like I'm thinking like she would think. I'm seeing like you can't be embarrassed. You have to give yourself over to the character. You can't say, oh, I'm embarrassed to say this or think this, or you have to commit and be that person, be what they would say, be who they are. And that's hard in today's world because, unfortunately comics now, especially if you still care about TV stuff, are constantly thinking about what you're saying, which is sort of the antithesis of what funny is. So nobody becomes a comic to watch what they say. Nobody's a class clown because they said the right thing at the right time. What makes things funny is when you say the thing that you'd probably be most embarrassed to say, or the thing that is the wrong moment that, someone who's inappropriate would say. So, Maurice is inappropriate. Mr. Panos is inappropriate. They're over the top characters that if you met them in real life would be like, this person's a little too extra. So you have to be willing to be extra and not feel embarrassed about it. So lose yourself in the psychology of that exaggerated character and forget your inhibitions.
It seems like that'll be easier when you do that homework, like asking what makes them tick, where are they from, getting all that context helps you to lose yourself in them more.
Without a doubt. You're right about that. Without a doubt. It's, whatever your process is, however you do that work, that's up to you. You can riff it and obviously, lower stakes circumstances on your own podcast or at an open mic or whatever. If that's your process, thinking about it beforehand when you're just sitting around, writing it down, whatever your process is, yeah, absolutely. You're right. And yeah, there's two types of comics I've come across, and only two: those who write beforehand their jokes and those who write on stage. So whatever, if you're one of the two, if you're a comic, you should figure that out. That's something I feel like you should get out of the way. You don't want to realize you're a guy who likes to write on stage after years. It's like, what do you feel more comfortable with? Like, Mark Norman, obviously, he'll do a little crowd work pop, but all his jokes are written. Sam Morrill's jokes are written, and they're both, one is not better than the other, obviously. All great comics who do both, but those are the two approaches to stand-up comedy, and you should figure out which one you are as early as you can so you can get good at it.
A question CJ Wing is asking is, how can you grow a solely internet-based audience without just begging your Facebook friends to watch your video?
No, well, that's how you start. It's like the bringer show for your Facebook videos. I mean, dude, I used to text every person to my phone with the links to the videos. I used to email them. I'd post them. I'd ask them to show their friends. You got to knock door to door virtually. There's no way. His question was upon him. He answered his own question. There is no way. You have to do that.
Wow. And do you think it's like, when it comes to the format of content and podcast specifically, like so many comics are just on there ranting? Like, it seems like if a comic's hearing this and is like, oh, what should my podcast be? It seems like there should be thought put into like the format. Why am I doing this show? Who is it for type deal? And not just, oh, I'm silly, I'll just go and riff.
Yeah. I mean, the more you can pick a theme or a niche now, the entertainment business has exploded into a million pieces, and we're all kind of like touring bands, and everyone mistakes their piece for the whole, but it's not. There's only like 4 famous people left in the planet. It's like Matt Damon, Matthew McConaughey, George Clooney, and like Leonardo DiCaprio, and like, Denzel Washington and a few others. Everyone else has their fan base, and it's even going to get more fractured. So think of yourself as a touring band. What's the niche? There's so many podcasts. So if you're just going to riff a podcast, 2 dudes riffing, you better be as funny as me and Chris were. You know what I'm saying? Like, and even we had a theme. And I know that sounds cocky, but we were funny.
No, you guys, killed it. The chemistry was crazy.
Yeah. So it's like and even we had a theme and a niche, and like, but we were, make no mistake, we were a comedy podcast. So it was like, we kind of hung our hat on the historical theme that we liked learning about. But if you're going to do straight funny, make sure you're fucking funny. But otherwise, you're right. Think about it beforehand. The Are You Garbage guys are a great example. They got a nice show idea. So nowadays, whatever your show idea is, don't go pitch it. Go do it. If it's it doesn't have to be a podcast. Do a web series. You want to do a half-hour show? Fucking do it. Do it. Just get the shooters, write it yourself. You don't need a budget. You can shoot this shit. When I used to shoot sketches, we would just rewrite it according to how we could shoot it. So whatever it is, do it. And then if you want to pitch it somewhere, show that. Don't go in with the idea. Just do it, man. Do it yourself. And you're absolutely right. Try to do a little preconceived work about what is the show.
Boom. Chris James asks, stand-up is susceptible to the pandemic. Clubhouse's hype has come and gone. Tim Dillon says podcasting is already dying. What's the next frontier in comedy?
Me and Tim talk about this all the time. Podcasts won't die because it's additive entertainment, and it's the appropriate format for the technology and the time, the zeitgeist. People like to add in their entertainment to what they're already doing because there's so many options that nobody's just going to sit down at 8:00 to watch destination TV. They want to bring you to the gym. People don't want to be bored for even 1 second. So even when they're on the toilet, they want something to watch. I mean, try going to take a shit without your phone. You'll have a panic attack. So that's what the podcast is. That's what your Instagram clips are. They're going nowhere. The Tim Dillon show is going nowhere. What's going somewhere is the Jimmy Fallon show. That's done. That is over. And you can fucking sign and deliver that. Tim Dillon show is only on the rise. And the reason why he's probably saying that is because he wants less competition. Because he's a shrewd, smart kid from Long Island. A lot of podcasts will disappear, but there's only a few podcasts that are really successful. So, don't let that discourage you from starting a podcast, and don't listen to shrewd people like Tim who are trying to discourage you so they have less competition. People want to know why the Hyenas broke up. It's because Tim was behind it to kill us, so he didn't have to share fans with us anymore.
The truth comes out. This one comes from Mark Pumpkin.
But Clubhouse is done.
You think Clubhouse is done? What makes you say that?
Yeah. Well, because I think it's like it was a quick pandemic thing, and it's Instagram. It's the same thing as Instagram Live, just without the video. So I think at the end of the day, it just kind of ran its course. People got disinterested real quick because I know that's the way I felt. So I imagine that's why their numbers are dropping, because everyone feels similar. It's just like, you just kind of get sick of it. It's just listening to people talk. You can do that on Graham. You could do that. It was a good pandemic app, but I mean, it's like its usership has dropped off a cliff. So I assume that's not going to. Oh yeah, big time. The numbers are bad.
Oh, did not realize that. Okay, I saw Dane Cook was poking around on there. I didn't know he was Mr. MySpace, so I didn't know if he was onto something there.
Yeah, well, that was probably just his 20-year-old girlfriend using his screen name. He's my generation. We pop in VHSs.
Yeah.
He's
laser disc. Yeah. Mark Pumpkin says, I'm 4 years into comedy. I'm 32, but look 25. Should I pretend I'm younger than I am, or am I a sick person?
I think you should just make that a joke on stage and leave it at that.
It's not the premise for an entire career. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Just do it as a quick joke and then maybe get in shape, or I don't know.
It's one of those you do about for maybe once or twice and you're like, all right, moving on.
Yeah.
Ball Zone. His profile picture is an actual image of Peter Griffith's balls chin. So I can only imagine what this question is. What are the new hotspot cities that are on your radar for stand-up comedy coming out of the pandemic?
I mean, that's obvious, right? Austin, obviously. Atlanta, I think, is a very underrated comedy town.
We out here.
Yeah, Atlanta. I think those are the two. I mean, Chicago's not underrated. Everyone knows. I don't know. That'll probably come back. New York will probably come back. LA will come back. But Austin, Atlanta, Nashville's probably coming up. Depends, man. Look at these look at what these local politicians do in the coastal cities, and if they enact these tax breaks for people, making $1 million combined in New York, you're going to start to see fucking comedy scenes pop up in Arkansas and all these red states where people flee to save $1, because at the end of the day, that's what really dictates people's politics is money. So if people keep fleeing these big cities, you're going to see more Austins pop up.
And that's what we're seeing here, like at Hot Breath. Like once the pandemic hit, we just went online. Like I just focused solely on this podcast, building the community. And now there's comics around the world in our Facebook group. We do a daily writing club in there, and like feedback mics and all these things just to help comics stay active and accountable during this time. But there's like comics in like Kansas who are like, I'll start a show at the local bar. Like they're starting to see, oh, I don't have to move to LA or New York. I can start pursuing it now.
Totally. Absolutely. I think the one thing about the pandemic, I think that won't change for sure, is that people have really realized how digital the economy is, and how you don't necessarily have to be, in a certain place. I mean, commercial real estate is going to be changed forever. I don't know if some of these companies will ever use offices again, because why would they? They can say people are just as efficient working remotely. Why would they pay that high rent in Manhattan? I don't know. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. Here's an interesting one. And actually, as we're on the topic of this, of like, so for someone like me, who's 11 years in, I was like headlining, and now I'm like, what now? I mean, to get to the next level of my career, is it online, figuring out what my voice is on here with like sketches or characters, just starting to experiment with that? Is that really kind of like what should be next, basically?
I think it's not an either or thing. I don't think it's a one pronged answer. It's everything, continue headlining, continue doing stand up, continue this podcast. If you love it, if it's got a committed fan base, start another one if you want. Think of something that speaks to your strengths. Do that as a series, whatever it is. Find your strengths, what makes you funny, and make that into content. Make that into content. Just, and usually it's the thing you enjoy the most. It's the thing that when you do it, it doesn't feel like work. So just keep trying things until one of them doesn't feel like work, and then people will respond.
Beautiful. All right. Sam asks, how do you get into storytelling without losing the audience? I myself lose interest after 30 seconds if I can't picture the scenario. Should I just be very detailed?
Dude, I mean, that's one of my weaknesses, storytelling. It's a weakness. I feel the same way. I'm too honest. So I don't know how to lie in a story. Like all the comedians you tell are good storytellers, they lie. Those things didn't happen. I mean, do you really think the machine happened that way? I mean, and that's not a knock. It's like, that's how you tell a good story, is by embellishing or lying. So that's not a talent I have, and storytelling is one of my biggest weaknesses. So I feel the same way he feels, and I would like advice from somebody how to become a better storyteller as well, because it's not my strength.
Oh, and Sam also said, shout out to you, Joel. I killed at my first open mic last week and have learned a lot from you and your guests.
That's great.
We're doing it.
You're doing the Lord's work out here.
Amen. We just need to pass around a tithe. That's all we need to do. We just need to get a tithe going, because we're trying to walk on water over here. It is thin. So, Robin, can I be too in your face when trying to get booked for shows? What's the proper number of times to contact bookers? Should I include a reel of material? If so, how many minutes?
That depends on the booker. It depends on your personality. It's all sales, man. Mirror them. If they feel annoyed, back off. But sometimes you can annoy someone into giving you a spot and giving you a chance. That is a total individual. That's different for everybody. I don't think there's one blanket for sure way on how to do that. Just feel it out and do what you're good at. Some people are better at networking. Do that. Do whatever it takes. Starting your own rooms is also amazing.
Yep.
That's what I did. I didn't even worry about getting booked. I just went and I went and improved my game on my own. Doing my own shows. Find a bar on a Monday or Tuesday. You know the drill. That works too. So I don't have a solid answer for that one either.
Oh, and Chris James, we just got a tithe. He just gave $10 for our Dogecoin piggy bank. He said this interview is amazing. Yo, we're rich.
You're rich.
$10.
You take it.
Oh, you don't want to split that? You don't get a finder's fee? I appreciate
you go for
Yannis.
it. Yeah, I mean, and I don't believe in Dogecoin, so I mean, go spend that on Elon Musk's fucking dreams.
No, I'm gonna spend this on Wi-Fi. Don't worry about that. Yeah. Just a few more here. We had Matt Walker asking, do you think it's a good idea for new comics to move to Austin?
Yeah, I do. I do think that's a very good idea. I do. It seems to be where people are congregating. Obviously, companies are moving there, so there's going to be people. I assume what comes next is it becomes a tourist destination. Maybe becomes sort of like San Francisco. You look at the people who came out of San Francisco, and that was the scene. Ali, Louis Katz, Kevin Shea. I mean, there's a bunch. It became a scene. So yeah. I mean, I would.
Sam Bass, it's kind of the same line. I mean, is it better to live on East Coast for doing open mics and getting started, or West Coast?
For getting started, I would say East Coast. I would say at least New York. At least New York. It used to be New York. I'm sure it's going to get right back to that because you can the sheer number of shows you can do in a night is unbeatable. So, I would put my money on New York or Austin over LA. I wouldn't start in LA. Hell no. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what was so dope about starting in Atlanta is like, I mean, there's so many shows and they're so diverse. Like I could go do a strip club and then go do like a hipster bar and then like go do like a coffee shop, like all in the same night. It's just a great way to develop.
Absolutely. So yeah, Atlanta sounds like a good spot too.
Yeah, Atlanta's a good spot to develop for sure. Michelle asks, is it better to have a YouTube channel or your own website?
YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I mean, what can you do? Google won that game.
It's the world's second largest search engine. Like,
yeah.
YouTube is... I realized the power of YouTube when I saw that social media documentary about how they're engineered to make us addicted to it, or a social dilemma. And they talked about everyone's just competing with YouTube at the end of the day. And I was like, oh, that's where it is,
Yeah.
So, yeah, YouTube for sure.
You can't fuck with Google.
And this is a goodie. Chris James, can we get Yannis's advice for handling hecklers, perhaps with an example?
You have to win. It's a cutthroat thing. Do not be nice. Be funny. Be merciless. Be brutal. Don't let them win the crowd over you, or you're done. Don't let them speak unless you feel like they're going to hang themselves and you're confident you can beat it. Shut them down. Don't let them know you're encouraging it. Hopefully you embarrass them into silence. If they do start to win, get mean. Get mean. If they start to win, meaning if the crowd is laughing at what they're saying more than what you're saying, don't get flustered and walk off stage. If they're burning down the show, you burn it down even more because the set is done anyway. So, and I don't mean, yeah, I just don't be scared. Don't look weak. Just burn it down. Let the crowd know that they ruined it. Be mean, get meaner, and just stay in the pocket. Do not go like, stutter your words and like walk off and let them win. You can't. It's a real knife fight at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And you gotta, you don't want to. You're not playing UFC where there's rules. It's a street knife fight, and you don't want them to win. And if they do, burn it down because they already burnt it down by making the crowd laugh. So it's over anyway. So figure out a way to burn it down more than they burnt it down for you.
So don't start mean. Just start a little conversational and speaking with them.
I think Malcolm X in this situation, by any means necessary, win that. You have to win that. Now, examples, there's too many for me to think of. It happens all the time. It's something comics got to deal with, and you should have a bag of tricks. You should have some go-to cuts, some digs. And what I mean by be mean is like, don't go like personal. I'm just saying mean jokes. Like if you have some mean ones, you know, it's like I've seen Jim Gaffigan get mean. I've seen Gary Goldman get mean.
Ooh.
You just, yeah. In fact, they get the meanest because they require the most attention and silence and orderly crowd. So, you can't let a heckler steal the limelight, and you can't let them win. If they ruin the show by saying something funnier than you and the crowd likes it, you got no choice but to burn the whole thing down. You know what I mean? It's like you can't give them that house. Either it's your house or it's nobody's house. It's not going to be his house. So that's my advice. Burn it down.
So if you like ended a show on a heckler, you just freak out on them and then just leave?
I make the crowd go, ooh. If they get funny and say something funny that beats me, which has very rarely happened, I'm good with heckler. Some people are better at it. I'm kind of good in the fly. Train yourself to be good in the fly. Have some stock. It's good to have some stock responses if you need that.
Mm-hmm.
But if I've gotten the times that I've like gotten beaten, yeah, I just kind of burned the rest of the set down in other words, I didn't go back to my jokes. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. The set is over. Like if they start getting laughs and the crowd gets behind them, keep going at them. You have the microphone, so you can always be louder. So don't go back into your set. It's over. The crowd likes them. The person you've lost. So now you have to burn it down. You have to make the crowd pay. The crowd sided with them. So fuck the crowd, fuck them, fuck everybody. You're leaving guns blazing and you're going out, cutting him off. Don't let him speak. When he starts speaking, you cut him off. You tell him this sucked. You tell him the room sucked. You tell him, fuck you. That's what I mean by burn it down. Like, you guys suck. You don't deserve it. Blah, blah, blah. Fuck this guy. Try to think of something mean. Do a lot because you're louder than him. One of them will hit. You know, he's speaking. They can't hear him. So you just go, you're a fucking idiot. Look at those jeans. Look at you. Look, you're probably one of those people. Don't pause. Burn it down. That's what I meant. I guess I wasn't being specific on what you do. That's what you do.
That's the most hyped you've gotten in this interview is talking about hecklers. You're like, you gotta kill
because
them.
They fucking suck. They think they're helping the show. I mean, you don't get beat by a heckler where he gets the crowd laughing and then you go, ha ha ha. Yeah, man, that was a good one. All right. Anyway, so let me get back to the material. No, the crowd, they're not into it anymore.
Yep.
He's emboldened and you look weak. Can't let that happen.
Yeah, that's something Robin said. Yes, Robin posted in our Facebook group a video of Rocky Dale Davis recently dealing with a heckler very well. If anybody watching this is curious about that. But
don't start mean. Start trying to, be funny. Try to be funny and deal with the funny and shut him up. Get the crowd laughing. And hopefully you embarrass him into silence, which is often what happens.
Yeah, because the crowd is on your side. Like, they want you to win, but if the heckler starts, then it becomes a game. If you don't just extinguish it quickly, it can escalate quickly. You
want to extinguish it quickly. It is a threat. It is a threat to your show. It's a threat to everything. If they're talking and not heckling, if they're disruptive, ask to have them removed. That's another thing. That's what I mean by burn it down. Like, don't go, haha, that was a good one. Don't agree with the crowd. If they, it's like, you can do like a smirk and then be like, okay, now you got to leave now because you're disruptive. Like, don't let the heckler be funnier than you at all costs. You have to be a heartless fucking stone cold killer to stamp out that threat.
Wee.
Yeah.
What's your opinion? Sean Lindblad said, what's your opinion on improv groups and how do you think they can help us with stand-up?
Improv is amazing when it's good. It's rarely good. Mostly sucks. But when it's good, it's amazing. They can teach you how to think on your feet more.
Mm-hmm.
Perform in the moment more, which is a good tool for live performance, especially if you're good at that. So obviously that.
Trent Babb said, "Do you have a checklist for for each new joke to make sure it's fleshed out?"
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I don't know if I'd call it a checklist, but something tantamount to that. It's I have I write them down like, oh, these are new ones, and then I really start to hammer them. And the way I write is I don't do every line, but I will have parts of the joke that signify the beginning, middle, and end. And so my whole goal with the joke is to know the beginning, middle, and end. So I'll have the premise first, then it'll start to form, and then it's fully cooked when it has a middle and it has a big pop at the end. I want, you don't want it to like die like that. I want that last laugh of the joke to be the biggest. That's the goal.
So sometimes it's like maybe in the middle or the beginning, and you have to figure out how to work towards that laugh instead of starting there.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said it better. Yeah. Like sometimes the first time I tell it, the big laugh will be at the beginning. And that's the goal. Going like, okay, now I got to figure out what the joke is to put that laugh at the end of the joke.
Okay.
Totally.
Are you more like writing on stage, or do you pen to paper?
All on stage. All on stage. I'll go with an idea that either hits me while I'm up there or I've thought of before, and I will completely write it on stage conversationally, and I will work it out and punch it up on stage, or off in my head and then put it on stage. So all the writing is done on stage, and then when it's fully cooked, I'll know it. And I do have a checklist where I'll have a couple of words that signify what the joke is. And then towards the beginning of it, I'll have, when the middle forms, I'll put that in. And then the end, I'll put that in. And then that's it. And then after that, I just put the premise because I know it. But that's the checklist. That's how I do it. It's like my format is I'm always looking for a middle and an end. So that and I write that down and I keep track of that. And then it's fully cooked and ready to come out of the oven when I get that laugh at the end. And it also paces in the middle a little bit. I want a few laughs in the middle. I want a laugh to get into it. And I want the biggest laugh at the end.
Do you have an example that you could like walk us through?
Yeah, like I'll take any joke that I have. Like, I'll take, this divorce joke I used to have, just because it's the first one I thought of. Or the soccer joke. So it's like I'd start with like the premise, this old soccer joke I have with like, I tried to like soccer. I did, it's just nobody scores. Americans, we like scoring. It's like the most that'll happen in soccer is every 10 minutes, there'll almost be a goal. So I get a little laugh at the beginning, like saying like soccer sucks, right? So some people will laugh, whatever. I'll riff that part or something, whatever feeling, whatever the show is. Nobody scores. Americans like scoring, some passion there. And then I will go, then I'll get, the only, what will happen, the only thing that happens every 10 minutes, there will almost be a goal. Someone almost scores, right? Set up right there. That's why soccer fans are so violent. That's why they're soccer hooligans, because they never get a chance to celebrate at the game. So they're all pent up and frustrated. And then they leave the match and punch each other in the face because they just had goal blue balls for 2.5 hours. Mm-hmm. Boom. Then I'm getting a laugh there. Then I go, the only thing that'll make soccer fun is if there was a blind guy on the sidelines with a gun and he was just randomly firing onto the field. Boom, boom, boom. So laugh there. And then I go into the crescendo. Then I go, Europeans, they hate when you criticize soccer, and then I'll do an impersonation of a Swedish guy or German guy. You don't like soccer because you're American and you're not good at it, whatever. And then I go, really, Magnus, lucky you are American athletes to not like soccer. And this is the last chunk, the biggest laughs. Do you know what would happen if Black Americans started playing soccer? Can you imagine, our athletes? There would be no World Cup, And then I go, can you imagine? Okay, it's the first game versus Italy. Here comes Guido. Here passes it to Luigi. Luigi back to Guido. But oh my God, here comes LaDainian Tomlinson. He's juggling 6 soccer balls. He passes it to LeBron James, who kicks a goal into another soccer stadium in another country to win 4 games at the same time. And at that point, it's like, it's laughter. And that's the It's all the same premise. And I found each little bits of that until it was all plugged in. Obviously, I can't put the act out in the middle. I can't put that whole imagine if black kids love soccer like they do, you know what the premise is. I can't put that in the middle because it has a big act out to it. It has a crescendo of laughs. So I few a couple of pacing punches with a blind guy in the sidelines, the gold blue balls in the middle, and then the little chuckles and premise up top. And there's the joke, man. And when I started that, I probably started with, and I remember actually, I started with the line in my head going, I know why soccer fans are so violent, because nobody scores. So they're frustrated. So that's how that joke started.
Okay.
So that was the only laugh I had. And I was like, all right. And so that laugh ended up being in the middle, and it's a big laugh. And then I found were the bigger ones at the end, and it turned into a bit. And I pushed that one farther back, developed it, and then found like a real nice ending for it. And I used to close on that joke actually for a while because it used to hit so big towards the end.
And you perform it on stage and then like record it and review it?
I should record it. It would make it quicker probably, but I don't because I hate listening. I just memory. Yeah. Recording it's great though, because I just can't stand to hear myself. And I don't have the patience to sit through the show again. So I forget a lot of shit. It takes a lot longer, but I do recommend recording it. Yeah. Especially with technology now with your iPhone or just record it, listen to it later for sure. I know Louis does that. I know a lot of guys who write on stage do that. Louis writes on stage, I believe. And it's like, it's great to do it that way.
Oh, and Sam Bass gave us $1 for that. Look at that. $11. We rolling, shouty.
Yeah.
So maybe just dos mas here real quick. John Molehill, what do you think of it's all been done before? There's nothing new under the sun mentality.
I can't argue that. It's like it's a finite universe. There's only a certain amount of chords in music. It's all about your experience, I think, is big right now. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't go to say it's got to be all stories about your life, but there's only a certain amount of premises. Yes, you just have to find what your melody is for that premise. You can't steal premises. You can steal jokes. So nobody can say, hey man, you told a divorce joke, so does Louis. That's not how it works, because there's only a certain amount of fucking things in this limited life that we live. The human experience is a finite one. So you got to find your melody, your rhythm, your delivery, all those things. You're a snowflake, and find out what that is. And that's what makes you funny. And your perspective on those things that have been done are original and new at this point.
And Erica Switzer, when did you trust yourself enough to start writing on stage?
Good question. I had a show at Bar 4 in Brooklyn and Park Slope. That was like my lab, and it became a pretty popular show in Brooklyn. A lot of people would go, Hannibal, Ali Wong, Soder, Nate. I mean, they were there like almost every week. I mean, Che, everybody. I mean, there's so many people would come through and rock that. Norman was there probably the most. And that's where I really started trusting myself, because it was my show. I hosted it. I did a lot of time. And that's where I got comfortable kind of writing on stage. So I would say probably around, between 2010, 12, somewhere around there, probably about 9 years ago is where I started to get comfortable. I don't know if I'm fully comfortable because it's a tightrope walk every time. Wow. You're going to bomb most of the time, until you get it right. But you just have to be confident and lead the crowd. And I could lose that if I'm off stage for a while. So it's like, that's all about having your chops under you and just like being in shape, just like an athlete, just training again, being up, doing spots. And that's where your confidence comes, because it's familiar up there. Your mind is ready for it. You feel sharp. You're in shape. Your mind's in shape. After the pandemic, I mean, I did one weekend at Stress Factory in October. I hadn't been on stage at that point since March, right? So it was like March, April, May, June, July, September, 7 months. I was nervous like was when I first started doing comedy, and it's insane. Wow. There were people talking to me in the green room, and I just wanted them out of the green room because I couldn't even listen to them because I was so scared and trying to think of what I was going to do. And it was the whole weekend, every show, I was scared out of my mind. So there you have it.
Oh yeah, last year I did one college because I was just like, this just pays too much for me to I'll get COVID for this gig basically. And like the whole 5-hour drive there, I have a set list. I'm rehearsing it for 5 hours, just like this is my first time again. It was really scary.
Yeah.
We talked about you quitting comedy. Robin was asked about quitting comedy. What pulled you out of wanting to quit comedy in those moments?
Yeah, Donnell, really. Donnell Rawlings.
Yeah, you opened for him.
Yeah, I opened for them on the Chappelle Show tour. Him and Charlie Murphy, Bill Burr, and then Christian Finnegan replaced Bill Burr. I do 5 minutes and sell his posters, and he let me go up in his room. Donnell he told me I was funny, even though I was not doing well. So that's something comics can see. That's why these bookers all stink. I mean, people talk about, I hate to say this, but I like bookers who are humble and know that their job is to book the talent. Bernie Brillstein has an old expression, the legendary manager agent. He goes, the reason why I was so good is because I always had the best talent. It's show business, not business show. So there are no legendary anything except comics. What makes you a legendary booker or whatever is that you get the best comics. So no booker would be able to tell a comic they were good before that's just what they, how many stories I've heard from good comics that didn't get passed at certain clubs and what those bookers said to them. I mean, it's fucking hilarious. And people are like, oh, that legendary booker. I'm like, look at who they didn't pass and look at who they did pass. Are you fucking kidding me? No comic would do that. No comic would ever do that unless they were friends with that person or they were fucking them and they felt guilty. Okay. Comics put funny people on and they know who the funny ones are and who aren't, because they do it. It's game knows game. It's like the best coaches for the most part have played at some point on some level. So Donnell saw that in me, even when I was horrible. I mean, I would go in his room and bomb, but he told me I was funny, and something about someone who was so funny, and Donnell is so funny, telling me that I was funny, gave me the confidence to start again. And, I was that point, I'm 30. So I was
wow.
So I was doing comedy once a week. And it was really, he pulled me in, he took me on the road. He let me get up every week. And I started to develop a love from that. Then from there, Dustin Chafman, I give him a lot of credit. He started putting me up in his room, which was a weekend night up at Broadway Comedy Club. And then I started doing these Aaron Haber rooms, and where he would have all these barkers on, and there'd be I had one credit at the time when that mattered. I was on VH1's Best Week Ever originally, a few episodes. So he would put me on, and they were 8-minute sets. I mean, God, it was a grind. And then I would do bar rooms, and then I started my own rooms. Starting my own rooms was the best for the development. But it was really Donnell that pulled me back into it. And I always give him credit for that.
Yeah, that's what Hot Breath has become. The community is a supportive and positive environment to just develop as a comedian. Because when I started, I was alone and confused. It was very competitive and negative. So it's if comics can just not have to worry about that aspect and just focus on getting good, comedy will just be better for it,
Oh, and that's a real positive about this era. It used to be guys were competing for a few sets, a few half hours, a few late night sets. So it was very competitive. And that's the way it used to be. Guys used to fucking, be negative and beat each other up to keep their chops sharp. It was a real fucking knife fight. It's totally not that anymore, man. There's room for everybody. Comics can lift each other up. You go on my podcast, I go on yours.
Mm-hmm.
There's people, it's not a zero-sum game. Sense of humors are different. Some people may like you, they may like your friend more. But those fans of your friend will learn about you and vice versa. And eventually, although our egos don't want to admit it, people can only hear you so much. So it actually helps to be able to tell people, hey, go listen to these people too, because they'll come back to you once they get sick of those people too. Yep. So it actually elongates your career because it keeps you fresh. There's like an ever rotating group of people checking a bunch of you guys out, and everyone wins. So it's like, I hate that fucking old school mentality. I hated it when it was necessary because I'm the sensitive type, although I do understand it was necessary because it was more competitive then. But that's why I embrace this era so much. It's like, nobody's a threat to you, man. Other comics can only help you, and you can only help other comics.
Amen. Well, Yannis, thank you so much for doing this, man. We always end these with two things. One, your favorite comedy advice you've ever gotten, and if you could look into the camera and say your name and why people should listen to Hot Breath.
Okay, first, people should listen to Hot Breath because it is a how-to, a masterclass from comedians who are masters, myself not included, talking about the craft. So whatever field you're in, even if you're not a comedian, you're watching the process of how you get good at something that obviously draws many parallels in many fields.
Yannis Pappas, thank you, my friend.
And my name's Yannis Pappas. And the other thing was what? Oh, the sound piece of comedy advice was actually from Donnell, and I'll tell the quick story. This was when Chappelle's show was like the greatest thing on the planet. And it was, I mean, you couldn't imagine how big it was. You guys know, it was massive. And Neil Brennan came to his room, Donnell's, and I was on the show. And I just put way too much into it, right? Because of how big Chappelle's show was. It was like, oh my God, in my mind, I'm like, Neil Brennan's here. I got to do really good. And then I went up and just bombed, right? And I was like, afterwards, I was like, Donnell was like, asked me why I was so down, whatever. I was like, I bombed. And I was like, you know, I was thinking about Neil Brennan and like, I wanted to do good. And Donnell said the thing to me, I'll never forget. He goes, son, because he says everything. Yo, son, what's up, son? He goes, yo, son, you thinking about all the wrong things. And that stuck with me. I was like, oh yeah, all I got to think about is having a good time and being funny. And that's it. Everything else falls into place, but never think about who's in the crowd. Never think, just have fun. The reason why I bombed is I was thinking about the wrong things. And that carries over into all the aspects of this game. Be funny, man. It's show business show. If you are funny, if you get good, everything else will present itself to you. Even if that's you figuring out what your show is, what your internet shit is, fucking be funny, man, and have fun doing it.
Well, there it is. Hot Breath of Verse. Go forth. Take notes.
Oh, here's another hot tip.
Ooh.
Don't sexually harass anybody because that'll end your career quick.
Ooh, amen. That's what happened to History of Hyenas, y'all. You know, they had to cancel Chris real quick. Yannis is separating. Well, where can they listen to your new podcast and support everything you got going on, Yannis?
Long Days. You can find that on YouTube. You can find it on all the audio podcasts. Long Days with Yannis Pappas. Check it out.
Awesome. Well, Yannis Pappas, this has been amazing. Hot Breath of Verse. We've done it again. Yo, this is the dopest comedy interview podcast in the world, and people will find out eventually. So thank you for knowing about it right now, hot brethren and sistren, and we will see you on the next one. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day.